Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:30, time that we get started for this March 6th meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission. I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second? Any needs to discuss? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. I'd also entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda unless anybody has anything they want to talk about.
John. I move to approve the consent agenda.
He has his own other section of the agenda, so you don't, yeah, so, you know, so. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Is that Fargo water? Second.
It's for lack of a second, you know. I have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. 4 or 5 gone. Customers to be heard or recognitions, do we have anything recognition-wise? I don't see any customers in the room, just the usual bandits, but, yeah. All right, okay. Usual suspect. That's what I was looking for. Dennis, thank you very much. Old business. I understand we might have a little old business to conduct. John?
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Here.
I think first item I'll probably like Chris to maybe address this, because I was listening to the council meeting here the other day, and the water tower basically came up, and I think 2 comments that concerned me as far as I think the discussion was how the council could paint their property however they wanted to, and also that they are saying that we have a much larger budget than I think we did or do. So I guess I'd like clarification is, did they actually say that that was their property, that they own the water towers, and that they will then spend whatever they think is appropriate on the budget or over the budget?
I listened to parts of the meeting, and I caught most of the discussion with respect to the water tower art design process, and I didn't catch that specific statement, but I can tell you what the plan is going forward with respect to the approval of the artwork on the tower. The plan is for March 27th. Basically, we have 2 options. One of the options, and that was the option presented at the council meeting that night, was the kind of more complicated design. There's a lot of elements. There's like a locomotive. There's a number of things on that wrap design. It's similar to the one that was presented here. The estimate came in for that particular design at $26,000, roughly $26,000. I don't remember the exact number, but it's roughly $26,000. When we got that estimate back, I tasked the artists and Sue with basically coming up with a design that would fit the budget that we approved, which was $20,000. So on March 27th at the meeting, what we'll do is we'll present 2 options. The one option, which is the more expensive option, will be presented, and then the option that fits the $20,000 will also be presented, and then you'll be given the opportunity to select whichever option you so choose. With respect to the overage on that $26,000 logo, the city is committed, I think, or is planning to commit, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, to split the difference of the roughly $6,000.
Right, and cities, I don't know if it's totally committed, but yeah, we're gonna pay the difference, so, and we never said we were gonna own the water tower.
Well, that's why I just needed clarification, because that was certainly the perception that I had listening to the meeting, especially when it said Chris was going to talk to Bill and tell him that our budget was going to be increased.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we need to have a little better understanding of who is running this project, and if the council wishes to change it, I would think they should come and speak to us versus having that discussion at council meeting.
Can we get a little context here? I'm really in the dark, just based on what conversations we have had so far. You know, here as well as just, I think, informally in that evening at the information meeting with some of the folks that are interested.
Yeah.
So, John, you're expressing something to me here that I wasn't picking up on.
Well, I think probably best for me to look at the meeting again here, but listening to it, Sue was making a presentation that it appeared that it was going to be over the $20,000 budget.
Okay.
And I think Steve made a comment and Chris made a comment that if it comes over budget, the city would pay for it.
Oh.
And then Chris was going to have that discussion with Bill and tell him that's what the decision had been made. Well, I find that interesting because this is a Moorhead public service project, and now it appears that it's being driven by council.
Yeah, and
No, no,
that
I'm
was,
saying
that
that.
wasn't the intent. So the, you know,
say
just backing up on the process. The process was, you know, to really re-envision the Old Port design into something that would fit the Woodlawn neighborhood. So we came up with a design committee. We had the kickoff meeting, and the design committee was composed of several city councilors, several residents of the Woodlawn neighborhood. Cheryl Dyson and Chris Thompson were also on that design committee. So the design committee really vetted those designs, came up with them, and then Sue presented to the commission the preliminary version of the design at the last commission meeting. And then she also presented the design to the council and to the Arts and Culture Commission. So that was really an informative process, not an approval process. The ultimate approval for this project lies on the March 27th commission meeting, whereby you would presumably have the option to approve, like I said, the $26,000 version, the more expensive one, or the $20,000 version. So any approval above $20,000 would require a contractual modification to the original contract for the tower. So I can't just say, or the city can't just dictate that, yes, we do this, because I would have to modify the contract. It's a change order.
Okay. And I appreciate that and just for clarification, I think the reason I'm sensitive to this is because when the first project was done, there was some pushback from the users about us spending money on artwork on the tower.
Right.
So there was sensitivity about that because we stressed to the point that there would not be any additional dollars spent, just the same amount of dollars that would have been spent originally on whatever would have been put on the tower. So that's been our consistent message, and now it's getting a little clouded.
Well, and we did say, the city said they would pick up the difference, and then we made some remarks about the design, you know, but I don't think we were pushing towards any conclusion there. We were just saying, we'll pick up the difference, so, and that's what I got, Chris, I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I think for clarification, split the difference. So
Yep.
the 6,000 overage would be split roughly 3,000 between the two parties. I believe that, I didn't talk to Chris Volkers, but that's my understanding. But like I
Between
said,
Moorhead Public Service and the city?
if the more expensive option was selected and that would require commission approval, the 3,000 would be, you know, would be donated by each party to make up that difference, to come to the 26. Again, I tasked the artists and Sue to come up with a design that did fit the budget. So you will be given an option that meets the budget on the 27th, along with the more expensive option, which was presented.
You know, I can just chime in here. I attended both subcommittee meetings in which this large group of people, both from the city council, Chris and I, as well as, you know, a number of people associated with the arts portion of the design, as well as neighborhood citizens that came in, because they're the ones that are going to have to look at it more often than just anybody, and, you know, certainly had an interest in having something that fit the neighborhood. And everything that Chris has represented here today, it was the exact impression that I got. I never felt at any point in time that there was a mission going on of any sort. It all seemed above board. The fact that we had a $20,000 budget to maintain, there were a number of ideas that individuals in this very large group wanted to put forth as far as adding to the design product, which then brought it above budget. So the last that I have seen, and Sue has been very open with emailing us and making sure that everybody is informed of the process and what's going on and what the next steps are. But as far as I know, as of today, there are the two designs. I guess my one question was, I didn't know if, is it an either or? I mean, the designing part is over, right? So it's either, do you want design A or design B? Do you want the $20,000 version or the $26,000?
It's that simple.
Yeah, yeah. But I never heard any comments, you know, not to say that I was privy to every conversation, I wasn't. But everything seemed very above board, I thought, and very respectful.
Okay.
Sure.
Enough said?
Yep.
For now?
For me, yep. Okay.
Oh, well, maybe
Sorry.
just a quick comment, and Chuck, I guess I'd appreciate maybe getting back to the city manager with this too. She's been expressing a few concerns about what user fees end up paying for. And so that, you know, for me, that would be one of the questions about what's appropriate for us to put into the Arts Commission's budget that really is generated via our fees. Because there is some, I don't want to call it entanglement, but there is some concern that revenues that are generated from our taxpayers and citizens and so forth are used for what it is that they're being charged for. And if we start to drift from that a little bit, we might get into a little bit of trouble. So just a thought that you might pass along, because the manager's been fairly direct in reminding us of that as well, so.
Right. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then just to follow up on, I had received an email from a property owner around the Moorhead Center Mall about just receiving a postcard the day of the meeting. And at our work, using postcards, we've run into the same issue as far as it being sent out and they're not getting there on a timely basis. So if we're gonna use a postcard, maybe we just need to give ourselves a little bit more time on it, because of for whatever reason, it seems a batch will get on time and a half won't get there on the time. So just some consideration for that.
All we need on that, yeah. I saw your note, yeah. Same concern was expressed to me, so I think it's probably wise that we will mail a little bit earlier than we did before.
Duly noted.
Yeah, cool.
So one question on that, as we're talking about the water tower, and it's somewhat related, is the power plant land transfer done?
No.
That's currently in the process with John Shockley's Onset Twitchell office, and then John Bolger, Will Johnson office as well too. So they're working through that process. The only thing that's currently outstanding from MPS is the final report from the MPCA, which we hope to have by the end of the week. But I've been told that several times and it still hasn't showed up. So
Okay.
everything's just trying to be hashed out between that and the 7 acres of property down in the McCarr Industrial Park.
So no legal issue open, it's just a matter of getting it done?
Yeah, I think it's just, working through the details
Yeah.
with the attorneys,
It's been, what, 2 years?
roughly, yeah.
No,
Want to
that's
sell?
fast, huh?
Want to sell?
No, I just want to know where we are on that.
Has this been the MPCA's problem the whole time, or?
Well, there's two sides to that. The MPCA needs to finalize the review of the draft report that Mark Johnson from Braun Intertech finalized and sent. It's got to be at least a year now, roughly, that they've had that. The other side of that was the agreement itself for providing the power plant land back to the city with the transfer of the 7 acres. That is, being dealt with through the attorneys.
Okay.
As well. So there's two sides to that.
So submitted to the MPCA about a year ago?
I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, it's been there
Approximately?
it's been there a long time, so,
Okay.
At least a year.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Maybe one piece of maybe it's old business, but Chris, very quickly, tell us about the runoff issue that was in the press over the weekend. That
Yeah,
you recorded
I
on.
can pass out the article. Just a brief, I'll just give a brief synopsis. The Buffalo Red River Watershed District does a lot of different activities to try to improve water quality within the watershed. They do a number of things related to improving stream water quality and the like. With respect to this project, it's a relatively significant project, about $10.4 million. And the hope is that it really reduces some of the sediment loading within the Red River. I just gave a quick kind of comment with respect to anything that reduces sediment or nutrient loading within the river generally has the impact of reducing cost. Just generally, we see really high turbidity influxes, which means the cloudiness of the water in the Red River often can vary quite wildly, and that has a big impact in terms of cost of treatment, in terms of the operation of our facility. So generally positive steps that the watershed is doing. We don't have a financial stake in the project of any kind. It's just a good project that the watershed is pursuing.
Well, I thought it was an opportunity for us, mainly because of Bruce Albright's comment at the first part of the interview about you don't want to be drinking that. You know, for us to communicate with our folks that they don't have anything to worry about. Because that kind of got my attention early on in the article. And thought if no one went any further than that line and didn't hear from you, then we'd be answering questions.
Sure.
So I think it's important that we just reiterate that our water's fine.
It's not a compliance.
Okay.
Well, one point on that too, when are we, water's fine, but when are we shutting off the ozone to go to chlorine? Is that this month?
We're actually opening bids on Thursday, and then it would be awarded at the March 27th meeting. So it'd be late April, mid to late April. So we're still a ways out yet, but it's still coming, yes. Yep. We'll talk about it more on March 27th. We'll probably have a better idea at that time.
Okay. Anything further under old business? We had a lot of old business. All right. Reports. Chuck, City Council.
I was gonna talk about the water tower, but
Well, you want to talk about the water tower?
thanks for stealing that.
Let's talk about the water tower.
No, I think we're good there, so.
Okay.
So I'll pass this time.
You'll pass, that's it. Nothing else going on, huh?
We have a council meeting Monday,
Okay.
so, but yeah, not much.
Okay, great, thanks. Public Service Commission, members, anything going on in your worlds? John? Oh, you want this?
I guess I'll have to give an opportunity to Chuck to speak on this matter. On the 26th of February, there was a joint meeting between EDA and the board and I think all the council members were there. And the discussion was the direction of how the EDA should go in the future. Historically, here it had been a city staff person, and then EDA was allowed to hire their own director, which at this point Cindy is the director. There has been a process put in place to move that back into the city employee realm because of the perception of the benefits of doing that. It was my belief that all the board members who were there from the EDA encouraged the city to continue with having it separate employed because of the benefits that have resulted from that and the direction that we think the EDA should be going at. I think from my sense here, the city councils is pretty much moving towards moving that back under the employer of the city. And in my opinion, then it really takes away the efficiency and the productivity of the EDA board.
John, you are our assigned designate to that board, right?
Yes.
Voting member full member.
Yes.
I'm not sure we're going to have the time tonight to get into a whole lot of conversation about the details of that. I was aware of this move as well, and yeah, I know that various members of the EDA have been concerned about that too. Is that something that the commission wants to express anything further than what John has already expressed?
I'm too uninvolved in that topic, to be honest, to make a.
Okay.
And, you know, we're still talking about it.
Okay.
You know, nothing's in stone. We're still talking about it.
Yeah, well, John, you're our guy there, so we'll depend on you to keep us informed there. There's a lot going on, and, you know, a lot of players. The new downtown group has selected their director, and he has hit the ground at a sprint. My gosh, you know, running doesn't even describe it. So there's a lot going on, but I know there's a lot of interest in that. Charlie Johnson, the chair, and I've talked about it a little bit too, so I'm not surprised by your report. So stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, we're still talking. We had a workshop with the EDA board and just talked through some issues, but yeah, it's a work in progress right now. So
Okay.
nothing's set in stone.
I will briefly report to you that I traveled to our nation's capital last week with Bill to take part in the APPA Washington fly-in. Had what I thought were encouraging meetings with the Minnesota delegation. Actually, both senators, Senator Smith and Senator Klobuchar, were able to attend, and I was a presenter at Senator Smith's meeting with us on the potential for privatizing our hydro transmission systems. And her reaction was very positive to our interests, as was Senator Klobuchar's when we presented to her. We got staff for the House members because House members were pretty much on the floor all day voting, so we didn't get to talk directly with House members, but we had plenty of time with their staffs. I think the big issue for us, because of the tone of the administration in many of the areas, regulatory-wise, as well as government properties and so forth, we are newly and sincerely concerned about the idea that they would privatize a major supplier for us. That would have all kinds of ramifications for the cost of the electricity that we buy from the hydro systems. And basically, you know, we've described it as, you know, we've been paying this mortgage for the life of the system. It's paid for. And now the bank's given us a new mortgage to pay for the same house. And so we're encouraged by the reaction that we got. I don't think Congress is going to get on board with this idea. It's very short-sighted in what cash it would generate as opposed to what it would cost over the long run. So that was very good. Municipal bonds, that was received well too. We almost lost them in the tax bill and got them back, so we're good there. So pretty good meetings. Washington is a different place. I used to spend a lot of time out there, and it seemed like we were accomplishing a lot more when we were out there, and it doesn't have that feel any longer. So it can be a little depressing going to those meetings, but we felt like we had spoken well and did what we were out there to do. So if you care to, there's a big heavy book of topics, lots of issues that we can talk about, but we chose to focus on those that were really directly affecting us right here in this part of the country. So, alrighty. Mr. General Manager, sit-in person, whichever one of you. Since Mr. Schwant is away, we get the twins. Which one of you wants to go first?
I'll go first,
Okay.
under that pretense.
Okay, twin number one. Okay, Chris.
With respect to item number 9, Travis and I have a couple points, about 3 points each, which we have kind of in line for discussion tonight with respect to the approval of the strategic plan.
Okay.
We're fortunate tonight to have Richard Wagner from A2S with us.
Oh, good.
One of the items that we're focusing on for the Water Division is sludge. We've talked about a lot over the past couple of years.
He's your guy.
And I think we've made some headway in terms of our future direction, and we'll kind of talk about what our future direction is this year. We've got a couple big decisions to make. But with that, I can hand it to Travis.
Yeah.
Is there a page that you want to direct us to within the homework that corresponds with what we're talking about?
Yeah, so basically what you've got attached here is, what you talked about was the strategic directions at the February 6th meeting.
Right.
We've also included, under those strategic directions, some goals. And underneath those goals is basically the work plan or work actions, that staff will have from there. And again, we've made some adjustments in the strike and underline form, so you can see the changes that were made.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, like Chris said, we've got, 3 high-level things. Chris will be talking about those, and I'll be talking about some of the electric division things as well, too. So review that, and as we go through them, we can talk about which goals they kind of hit, those top 3 ones.
Okay.
So we'll let you know.
And I'll just kind of give Richard Wagner a brief intro. As I mentioned, we've been working on this issue since about 2015. One of the things we did initially was we looked at just kind of our general options going forward for sludge. Basically, we were handed a mandate saying that we can't really store sludge the way we've been doing it for a long time. And so we have to consider a number of options. We did a small study with A2S to consider some of those options, and one of the things that came about in that study, one of the things that we talked about actually at the commission level was, what are our options in terms of, land application, making a market for the sludge. Have we really kind of dove into some of these issues, and that's what we did with this study. Richard did a great job on the study, and he's got a few slides prepared.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris mentioned, Richard Wagner with A2S, and we're just going to run through the land application of water treatment plant lime sludge this afternoon. Just a little background. I'm sure most of you are aware that in the treatment of water at the MTS water plant, it is a lime softening plant, and part of that lime softening process is the generation of a byproduct, which is lime sludge.
Which is actually in the bottle.
And yeah, there's a bottle being passed around, a sample of that.
It's not Bailey's Irish Cream.
No, not at all. I wouldn't suggest you open it. But as such, MTS has retained A2S to look at the land application options of the lime sludge that's generated. Just a little background on the sludge that's produced. We're looking at average numbers here because depending on how much water is pushed through the plant through peaks or valleys as far as water production, it will vary. But for the purpose of the study, we looked at the average flow through the water plant, which in 2017 was 4.34 million gallons per day. So we used that number and we based our sludge production values off of that. So for that flow, we generated roughly around 3,700 tons per year of lime material. And in this case, it's dry lime material. So basically, if you took that sample, you took all the water out of it, it'd be a powder at that point, and that would be the volume that's presented there. Below that, we have a 25% solids value, and that roughly works out to be about just under 15,000 tons per year. And Chris, as far as that sample that we sent around, what would we say that is, about 3-4% solid maybe at most?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
So even the 25% solids that we're looking at here is quite a bit more dewatered than that sample. And then also just, we're looking at in the future as well, as far as 2040, the water flow rate through the water plant on average would be around 6.3 million gallons per day. And then as you can see, the dry sludge or lime material produced would be just under 5,500 tons per year. And then at 25% solid would be about 22,000 tons per year. Currently, as Chris had mentioned, the lime material that's produced now is sent out to the lime sludge ponds, which are located to the north and east of here. The ponds are approaching their capacity, I suppose. There's about 3 years of capacity remaining there, so that's, well, will sneak up on us fairly quickly, so it's important to keep that in mind. The entities that govern the lime sludge process, what's done with it involves a number of Minnesota entities. The Minnesota Administrative Code Rule 7035 lays out all the general rules associated with the lime sludge. They cover the solid waste in general. They also cover the storage and transportation of the material. And they also do a categorization of the material, which is called, considered a byproduct in this case. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the MPCA, they oversee that, and they enforce it more or less. And they identify the pollution limits that are allowed in the material, such as heavy metals and other constituents. They regulate the land application of the material, and they also set the waterway setbacks, or when it can be applied, whether it can be snow-covered fields or slopes of the fields, things of that nature. Underneath the land application, there are 2 different land application processes. There is the standing beneficial use determination, or the SBUD, as it's referred to, and then there's also a case-specific beneficial use determination, or the CSBUD. And I'll get into those a little bit more detail in the next slides. Then also, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture is also involved under the SBUD, standing beneficial use determination, and they provide guidelines on how much lime should be applied based on parameters of the soil. So the standing beneficial use determination, this land application process is strictly used for pH adjustment. So this is a mechanism to take your lime sludge, dispose of it on land, and it will increase your lime or your soil pH. To determine how much pH adjustment you will see from your lime sludge, you have to run an analysis on your lime sludge. And the analysis will result in a number of results, but the primary number that you're looking at is the effective neutralizing power, which is ENP, and that is basically how much carbonate is in the materials to neutralize the acids in the soil. When you land apply lime sludge, the post-application pH cannot exceed 7.1, so that's a number to keep in mind. We looked at the pH in Clay County around the water plant and around Moorhead in general, and the pH of the soils around here generally consist of range from about 7.3 to about 8.1. So as you can see, the soils in this general area are not conducive to land applying the lime sludge for pH adjustment. To find soils with a pH low enough for land application of lime sludge, you would need to travel about 100 miles east to Wadena or Hubbard County. And the soil pH there is roughly 6.5. And it goes, and it decreases from there as you go a little bit further east, I believe. And then as far as the line application, the Minnesota Department of Health will dictate the application rate based on the soil pHs. We're looking at
Richard, what kind of volume of application would it take to even move the needle on the lands 100 miles east? If that were an option, to go by, what?
It's not.
I'm wondering how much or what volume of our sludge would need to be applied to move the needle from 6.5 to
You would need,
whatever?
right here, it would be 3.45,
Oh, okay.
3.5 tons of your limestone.
I'm jumping ahead on you. I'm sorry.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
So yeah, if we're gonna adjust the soil pH from 6.5 to 6.9, you would need to apply 3.5 tons of lime sludge per acre, and this is on the dry basis. The Minnesota Department of Health, or excuse me, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture tables provide the guidance. So to go from 6.5 pH to 6.9 pH, they indicate that you can apply 2,000 pounds of pure lime, and at your lime concentration rate, which is 580, or excuse me, of your ENP, which is 580 pounds per ton, that works out to be 3.5 tons of lime per acre.
I see.
And based on this application rate and the lime that you guys generate, which is 3,700 tons per year, you would need roughly 1,100 acres just for 1 year's worth of lime sludge that you produce. I also wanted to mention that when you apply lime sludge or lime and adjust the pH, it raises the pH, and over a number of years it will decrease again through uptake through plants or through leaching through the soil or whatever it might be. So it roughly, based on talking to a few agronomists in the Hubbard County, Wadena area, they indicate that with water treatment plant lime sludge, you roughly get about a 4-year cycle to reapply lime again. So with using a 4-year cycle, you'd need about 4,400 acres of land in continuous rotation to dispose of all your lime sludge that you produce. And this is, keep in mind, this is based on the 2017 production rates. And if you jump ahead to the year 2040, you would need roughly 6,600 acres of land to dispose of your lime that you produce. The other land application option is the case-specific beneficial use determination. And this is any other beneficial reuse of the lime material except for pH adjustment. There are no standards on what those benefits might be. It is on the lime generator's responsibility to determine what those benefits are and make the case to the MPCA of those benefits. So they need to justify it and provide proof and documentation of those benefits. And it likely involves some research and some field trials to make that case. And as a result, we looked at it and considered it not a viable option. I will throw out an example of Mary Crystal Sugar, which is also located here in town, and they have gone through this case-specific beneficial use determination, and they do have a permit with MPCA to land apply, and their permit is specific to sugar beet production. They've shown that the lime sludge that they generate, when applied to fields that will grow sugar beets, will decrease the prevalence of Aphanomyces, which is a root rot disease in sugar beets. So they have that option to land apply for that reason. So if there's so there may be an option for MPS to explore something like that, but I think it might be a difficult case to.
One thing to speak about too with respect to the crystal sludge is it does have a different makeup than MPS's sludge in that it's fortified with more things that will be beneficial to the soil, more phosphorus.
Right, yeah. I don't know the specifics of it, but their lime sludge is also run through one of their flumes, which has other byproducts in it as well. I believe, anyways, I'm not sure on that. But as a result, it has higher nitrogen and higher phosphorus and other beneficial items, constituents for agricultural crops as well. So it's unique in that manner as well. Looking at the cost to land apply for pH adjustment underneath the standing beneficial use determination, we assumed that the material would be hauled out to the Wadena Hubbard County area, and it would include loading the material onto trucks. It would include onto a beater spreader to land apply it, and also working it into the ground. The application rates are based on 6-inch soil profiles, so it has to be worked into that depth as well. So all those included, along with, I should mention that this is based on the 25% solids content as well, which you're trucking more water based on that as well.
Right.
It works out to be about $28.75 per ton to land apply it in that general area. Based on the lime that you produce in 2017, it would roughly cost $428,000 annually to dispose of the sludge in this manner. The other component of this, as was scoped out in their agreement, was we were to look at the land cost as well, if MPS wanted to purchase the necessary land to do this. And I talked to a local land agent, Pfeiffer's here in town, and got some land prices in the Wadena area, and they gave a range of anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 on average. And based on the volume of land that you guys would need for this land application, we took the higher end of that range. And at 4,400 acres, you need to spend roughly $8.8 million in land purchases.
I know Kevin, he's just wanting to sell land.
So, yeah, it's a considerable amount of money.
Yeah.
To put this in perspective, we want to look at an alternative disposal method, which is not land application. And this is land.
Hang on just a second, Richard. John, were you?
Well, yeah, just clarification, if that land was purchased, then that would be a sole use for just disposing of the lime, it can't be used for any other purposes?
No, if you were to purchase the land, you'd have control over it, and you would be, I would assume that you would rent it out back to farmers or agriculture producers who would use, although there may be some tracts of land that you would want to keep out of production in certain years so that you can use that for disposal of your lime material during the growing season.
You didn't have that part of your analysis, though?
We did not figure in the revenue from that. So another option is landfilling, and this option includes a little bit different. This would be a roll-off container that would be positioned at the water treatment plant. It would be loaded with lime material that is generated, and then a third party would pick the roll-off dumpster up, haul it out to the Holly landfill, and dump it there, and pay the tipping fee, and then you'd end up being charged a pull fee and the trucking fee, and those costs included altogether would roughly be $27.5 per ton of lime sludge, which is about $1 or so less than the land application.
And that's liquid as well, right? 25%?
25. This is based on 25%, yeah.
What does it come out, what does it come out at?
The 3 or 4% range.
So that's where we need to condense it
Yep,
down
we
basically
still need to
to
press it.
25.
Yep.
So based on that rate, or that cost, and the amount produced, you're looking at about $408,000, which is very comparable to the land application. But in this case, you do not have the land cost associated with this.
Do we know whether Harley would take this?
Yeah, I've spoken with Clay County landfill, and they are willing to take it, but they were, it needs to be, can't be too much liquid. They're really concerned about the sloppiness of the material, so it needs to be pressed, and it needs to be kind of somewhat clean material for them to take it. So there's a number of conditions. We haven't gotten into deep conversations yet with those folks, but that's something that we'll be looking at.
Well, I did a quick calculation, so it's about 40 tons a day, right? Is that about right?
Yeah,
Roughly?
yeah, I have to calculate it out, but it sounds about right, 2 loads a day or something.
2 loads a day?
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
So how would the pH not be affected at the landfill then?
With landfills, that's a disposal site, so they have their liner in there, and they have most likely a leachate collector system of some sort, so it's any
What's the lifespan for that landfill?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
I know it's in Fargo, it's a kind of a beneficial.
80
it's
years.
actually- Okay.
I'm on solid waste advisory, it's about
Oh.
80 years.
Okay.
Oh, it's 80?
Yeah. With the no sort recycling, we've kind of bumped the years back a little bit, so.
To totally divert us here, have we considered going to St. Paul and getting exemption? Because the reasoning for the, you may not store your stuff open is because they were worried about leaching, right? And we have clay nothing leaches, right? Have we thought about that, or is this don't even try?
In 2014, I believe, MPC came out with a clarification, eliminating the option of permanent storage of the lime sludge in the ponds. It's always been written, but it's been, I suppose, allowed to some extent, and then in 2014, they started enforcing it. And I'm not aware of anybody who successfully argued it. I believe some have, but in the end, they've ended up conforming to the administrative rule.
Although, is that something to further explore?
Well, I mean, we're looking at,
Yeah,
hefty chunk of money here, might as well.
it's just politics.
Yeah.
We did have some discussions with MMUA and some of those folks, just
Yeah.
some very preliminary discussions, but we pursued it a little bit, but not maybe to its full extent. Just because there are a number of people who it seems as though have tried to fight it and have been unsuccessful, or there's a number of parties who have made pretty big investments thus far who are in compliance. Thief River Falls is one example that's made a substantial investment because they're in a similar predicament as us.
So investment as in they've tried to fight it, or investment as in they're
They
compliant?
built infrastructure.
They built infrastructure.
Yeah.
So are they doing the hall or application, or do we know?
They're building ponds, basically a big concern.
If they're constructing ponds, and then, the rule states that you have to remove the lime material from the pond within 3 years of it being placed there. So they are in the process of just commissioning their ponds now, and so that within the next year or two, they will look at where they can dispose of their material, whether it be in a landfill or if they can find some land with pH suitable for land application. Historically, they have, I believe, land applied.
Oh, I need just a little short history lesson here. How are we currently, or have we been disposing of the sludge?
Right now, we basically just pump this material out to those 12 ponds, and it's just stored indefinitely. So basically, the water on top decants off, it settles, the solids settle out, and we pump the water that remains back to our treatment plant, treat that water, but the solids just stay out there. So we built those ponds over a number of years and just stored that material indefinitely. And presumably, we could still keep the material out there. We're not forced to remove that material as part of this rule. It's just, we're approaching that capacity
That was
within
gonna be
3
my
years.
next question.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where the 3 years comes in, and that's why
Correct.
we're having this discussion.
Exactly,
Okay.
because, if the ruling really applies to the new ponds that we would construct. So if we build a new pond out there, the first day we put sludge in it, we have to get that sludge out within 3 years.
Okay.
That's the issue.
All right, thank you.
What's magic about 3 years?
I think it's just a mechanism to force you to remove it. I don't think there's anything magical about it.
I believe it's, like Chris said, just so that it's not stored there indefinitely. Sunset, or timeline that you have to address it. And beyond 3 years, then it's considered an industrial waste, and then you need a liner, and you need a leachate collection system, or whatever it might be.
It just changes overnight after 3 years and becomes an industrial waste. I love politics. Chuck?
With the Clay County landfill, where were they gonna store it out there? You said it mostly has to be solid out there? I mean, do they have separate ponds out there, or what are they,
It'd just be mixed in.
mixed in with the waste?
Yeah, they most likely would use it as a cover on their 25% solid is it's a cake that you can hold in your hand, and it's not so wet that it's dripping. It's more of a maybe greasy, slimy, not even slimy, but I don't know how best to describe it.
That's what we press it to.
Yep, that's what we.
So they just use it as a cover, like a fines cover, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The city of Fargo already uses sludge for that particular application. They use it just to keep flying debris out, down. It just helps knock down the material. But there's other issues. They'll have some operational issues with dealing with this at the landfill as well.
Okay.
With that, I guess that brings me to the end and our discussion. Any other comments?
We haven't talked about what needs to be done to press it from the 3% to the 25% yet, though. Is that gonna be?
Yep, and that's kind of the conclusion. So A2S's scope ended at kind of what were the costs and what would land application look like. And so that's what they have answered really with this study. In terms of next steps for public service, I think the next step is we're actually in the process of developing a drinking water revolving fund loan application with the intent to fund a sludge press plant. So that's in the range of $5.5 million. And you'll actually be seeing that pretty shortly. The application deadline is I believe May 1st. So you'll see it at the 2nd April commission meeting. And just as background, we use this drinking water revolving fund tool to fund our high service pump station, which was a $12+ million improvement that we recently completed. It's a good funding mechanism for this type of project, and that's why we're looking at it. But that's one of the next steps you'll see in terms of where we're at on this particular project.
Is this something we could do as a service for other districts?
Good question.
Is there a fee? I mean, is there a fee possibility for us to?
We're looking at that option. I can't go into detail.
Okay.
It's very, very early.
Okay, proprietary, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very early.
I'm sorry.
But we are looking at the possibility of that, so it is being considered.
Okay. It would seem like there's a potential for doing something more than just for us. So,
Right.
Okay,
Right.
cool. Folks, anything else on this one? Lots to think about.
What's the next step? Where are we going from here?
The next step would be to approve the application to the Drinking Water Revolving Fund Loan Program. So you'll actually see the entirety of the application, which will say, this is what we think we're gonna need to do to develop that press plant to take this particular liquid to the cake that Richard was talking about that can be transported to a landfill to another location.
Okay. So you'll be coming back?
We'll be coming back.
Yep.
We just kind of wanted to give you an update in terms of progress that we've made and kind of where we're at.
Okay. All righty.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, so.
Next up, Richard, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Appreciate an excellent description. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Chris, that was tied to one of your goals in the strategic direction. So, next what I want to talk about would be the electric master plan update. This will be a big topic for us in the next few years. Not only will it provide us direction going forward, it'll also help us with our work action plans as well too, and what projects we're going to do and when we're going to do them as well. So a couple of the high points on this, with the electric master plan, we'll be looking at our substations again. We'll look at probably the northeast and southeast subs, and the northeast for maybe a relocation or a larger control building, and the same with the southeast sub. We'll look at a larger control building just from a safety standpoint there. Other things we'll look at in the substations, we'll look at bus modifications or necessary changes that we need to make to the infrastructure, along with when that future substation is needed, just purchase the land for it. And also we'll look at a transformer replacement plan for our large power transformers in those substations. On the transmission side, a couple big topics that are coming there are going to be the FM diversion and the relocation of the transmission line for that, along with other future transmission transmission needs, whether it's to a new substation or something else. And short-term, in the next year or two, the 2021st Street transmission line relocation as well. So those are just some major topics that will be part of the work action plan.
Are costs for things like the diversion work recovered in the cost of the diversion, or is that?
Majority of it is, they will pay the cost to replace it exactly the way it is today.
Okay.
And if we do some minor upgrades to it, we would pay those costs.
That would
And
be-
we've accounted for that in our budget,
Okay.
so. Other parts of the master plan we'd be talking about would be the overhead to underground conversions, and just discussing that in more detail in the master plan, just to get a third-party opinion on that as well. And then again, looking at the feeders, voltage needs as well, and where we need to be placing future feeders as well too. So those goals really tie into strategic direction 1 and 2, into goals 1.1, 1.2 and 2.2. So just for a little guidance there. And Chris, you're gonna go.
Chris, just, the other Chris either didn't make it or can't get in. Is the building locked? I'm just wondering about our other commissioner.
No.
Well, I don't know. I haven't, did we hear from her?
She just said she might be delayed.
Okay, but
I know.
is,
There are cameras out there so the dispatchers can see if there's.
okay,
some leads
okay.
going outside, but the
It just
doors
occurred to me
are
that
locked.
she might be trying to get in, so, okay.
Yeah. Doors-
Yep,
Get into the vestibule and then.
okay, okay. John?
I'm gonna go back to Chris here. Chuck, do you think a presentation from Chris to the council would be beneficial, or is that something that you can bring them up to speed on? What do you think would be the best approach? Because that's a $6 million project that we're gonna be seeing in 3 years, plus annual costs of $500,000.
I think a presentation by Chris would be good.
One thing we could tie it to, the loan application actually has to be approved by the city council as well. We can certainly tie it to that. I don't, we can just provide an overview.
It doesn't hurt to bring them along.
Right,
No,
right.
I don't know.
I'd be happy to do
Same night it's on the agenda.
that.
We're gonna, same night it's on the agenda? Or you
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to make a point, I want no more snickering when we talk about sludge, okay? So, anyway.
No, I'm not gonna promise that, no.
Quick question to Travis. So, the third supply line is off the table, right? We had looked at it at some point to come from the east.
Correct. I shouldn't say it's off the table. We could do it, but it would be at our own cost. We wouldn't see any type of reimbursement through the ATRR with SPP.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? Anything else? Okay.
And Chris was gonna go back and talk
Next
a little
up.
bit more about some of his water topics.
Okay.
Yep. I just have a couple of additional water topics that we'll be kind of tackling in 2018 here. Kind of one of the big topics we haven't talked a lot about, but we'll be talking more about is expansion on the Buffalo Aquifer. Just a little history, over the course of the past several years, we've done a lot to, I would say, develop the resource in terms of understanding what type of drought capacity is available in the Buffalo Aquifer through modeling and through other efforts, and really trying to enhance our understanding of the aquifer and possibly provide for better protection of the aquifer. One of the things in particular we did, in addition to looking at the drought capacity of the aquifer, was looking at some of the future costs that are associated with that aquifer expansion. We've done quite a bit of work on those items. Kind of where we're going with respect to this project, the next step for the project is actually to go out and drill some potential wells where we think we want to develop a well field for a future, we'll call it Saban expansion or Saban pipeline expansion. One of the big benchmarks that we have with respect to that project is procurement of the DNR permit that we'll need so that we can make additional withdrawals on the Buffalo Aquifer. So we're actually looking at sometime possibly this summer or later summer, doing some of the test holes associated with that project and trying to find really some good locations for that particular project, and looking at well field siting as part of the project. So no action required at this time. We just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed in terms of where we're at on that project. We are looking at, and we have a pretty substantial amount of money budgeted for that project, and really a big milestone will be getting that DNR permit. So it'll require a 30-day test period, so a pretty extensive test period. We'll work with DNR pretty closely to really get that allocation pinned down.
Have we looked at routes or right of way, or, you know, whose land it is that we would be
We're-
encroaching on and things like that?
It's a wonderful question. We're looking at using right of way, but we're also, some of those topics, we're looking at some other options in terms of encroachment.
Okay.
We're looking at some of, what I call some types of agreements, maybe John.
Well, we're looking at acquiring some options, both to do the testing and then to permanently site wells there.
Oh, okay.
And we've identified a couple landowners that we will be approaching on that.
Okay.
So that's all
Folks.
that's kind of the update for that particular topic, but that's
Okay.
under 1.1 and 2.1 of our strategic goals. Kind of bounce it back to Travis, yeah.
Another major,
They are the twins. This is tag team. You know? Did you rehearse?
No, we didn't actually.
You came here unrehearsed?
another, major strategic direction that we've taken over the past few years is GIS. And that continues to grow on a daily basis and yearly basis as well. You guys just approved a master plan needs assessment, or a contract with Pro West to do that. We just had our initial discussions on that, so they'll be bringing back some items for us to work on, or more efficiencies and things like that as well too. Just a couple things else that we'll be working GIS wise is working to start connecting it to other softwares and stuff like that. We're gonna work to connect it to our SCADA to give us better mapping. That will lead to other options down the road, OMS type outage management things, be able to maybe put our meter information on there if we ever go to AMI, things like that. So that's kind of our first step in testing the waters and moving, having systems connected a little bit more, providing more information as needed. Will be part of the other process is finalizing the electric model, and that'll help with our master plan as well too when we work with DGR on that. And then working with some type of asset management or work order software to do a better job of tracking asset maintenance as well too. And this both applies for both electric and water, so it's not just an electric thing, it's both. So other than that, Chris, you can take on over on your next topic. And I should say that a lot of those topics, they tie to goals 1.2, 2.2, and innovation as well to 5.2 for the electrics.
Kind of the last of I would say my top 3 topics would be in terms of water distribution development, and specifically with respect to the construction of a water tower actually in 2019. We're currently undergoing water distribution modeling update, and actually I haven't done an update since about 2009, I believe. So we were due for an update in terms of our water distribution model. We're currently working on that. As part of that update, we'll be looking at the construction of a water tower in 2019. I mentioned that we'd be utilizing Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan money potentially for the sludge press plant. We're also going to look at it for the Southside Water Tower. So a couple things to consider there. That Southside Water Tower, we actually already have the land purchased for that tower. We have it sited. Pretty much everything's ready to go, except we have to do the loan application and then obviously develop plans and specifications for the project. But it's very near on the planning horizon.
For Cheryl's benefit, would you just describe the location for our next?
It's
Tower.
40th Avenue and 28th Street South.
Okay.
So it's kind of southeast of the I-94 tower. So there's not a lot around it right now, but it's
Yeah.
cited for potential development of the city, and we've looked at growth of the city, kind of where we need that next tower to be. In terms of our planning horizon, we're starting to kind of hit some critical thresholds in terms of water storage for the distribution system and max day demands, where we really need that additional storage out in the system to make sure that we have fire flows available for fire events. That tower in particular will benefit fire pressures if there was ever another fire at the Pactive facility or adjacent to the Pactive facility. That would really be, that was one of the things we looked at strongly, one of the things that will actually help us in terms of the loan application, some of the modeling efforts that we did with respect to the location of that tower and the benefit it will provide.
Projected estimate budget.
3.8 million.
And that was in 19, and we're thinking
It's
the
in our
sludge application will go in when?
They'll actually both go this year. Both applications will be submitted this year. Construction wouldn't start, we'd start design maybe late this year on the tower. It wouldn't get bid until spring of 2019.
So about $10 million.
Roughly.
We're touching, what, 2 to 3 budget years? with that?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
They are, both of those items in particular are in the 10-year CIP, so we've accounted for them. We just have some hurdles to hit in the meantime in terms of looking at the loan applications, and hopefully that there isn't any hiccups there, but that funding source isn't guaranteed either.
If we get it, what was the interest rate we got last time, 1.2, 1.3?
1.2.
We've done 2 loans, and one was 1.02 and the other one was 1%, so
Yeah.
very, very nice.
If we get them there, but still $10 million, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of last of my big
those
three projects that we're facing in the next couple of years. And
The end of those zero rate increases.
Well, at the same time, we're doing the replacement still.
Yeah.
For
Oh, yeah.
what, 15,
Right.
15 years?
Yep, 10 plus.
But it's all budgeted. We've been projecting these projects, for the last several years, so.
The last major topic is innovation, which really ties into 5.1 and 5.2. Talks about smart grid on the electric side, and we've been doing some distribution automation. We've got about 13 to 14 motor-operated switches out in the field now where we can remotely operate them with our SCADA system. We've been having some struggles with the Brookdale substation where the spray from the I-94 bridge is impacting that, causing some outages.
Oh, really?
And we're working on a maintenance plan to, and it continually changes. It used to be a 3-year plan, and it was a 2-year plan. Now it's a year plan, and actually we're gonna even do it right before the fall starts, and then ready to get into spring, and probably be continually checking it. But there's not a whole lot that you can do. So from that standpoint, we're trying to figure out a better way to get the people back on as fast as possible. The last outage we had was about 18 minutes, but it's 18 minutes. So we're gonna look at maybe doing some more motor-operated switches in that area, and we'll be discussing that in the master plan as well too.
Yeah.
So that'll be large. The next part, another part of that would be, looking at the AMI system again too. MRES is still looking at going to time of use by 2020 or 2021. So, that's an electric and water plan as well too. We're gonna have to find something that works for both divisions. And it might not be a cheap project either.
So are you saying that MRAS would charge us,
It would
charge
charge
us by
on
time of use?
of use, and we've got the option to do that to our customers, but we don't have that option currently because of the metering system we have.
So basically our supplier could say high time of use because your using steps could be more expensive. If you use a different time, it would be lower, less expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. And in order for us to then pass it on, if we were about to do that, we need smart meters.
Yeah, if we wanted to do some type of time of use or different rating structure, yeah, the meters would have to be changed out. So you can have a little bit more smart stuff. So, and then 2 other major topics, geothermal, we're still waiting for a response on that proposal that was provided to them.
We thought a magic date was like last Friday. Anything new on that?
No, Dennis is saying no idea right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, it's still with, a consultant engineer director with O&E.
Yeah, step up to the mic there a bit, Dennis.
Dennis Eisenbrown, Energy Services Manager. Right now, our consulting engineer, O&E, is working with a developer, and they're working on some cost analysis, and that's really where they're at right now, is they're trying to figure out if this thing plays out for them. If it does, they'll go for it. If not, they'll just go with gas, I suppose. But that's where they're at right now, and we're really, hoping they do something soon, because it's gonna be the point where the decision will be made for them if they don't make a decision fairly soon.
Right.
So,
Do we have an expiration on the funding?
not really. I mean, we could change the plan, we could drag it, we could do something different. I have talked to APPA about that. I said, if this doesn't work, we may just end up not doing this at all, or we might do something different. And they're really excited about that, the concept of doing something with geothermal. And so they're certainly open to us modifying the plan a little bit, and that could extend it out. But there's really no deadline per se, other than, I guess they really want us to be done with this by April of 19. And if it goes out past that a little bit, that's okay. But if we don't do anything by April of 19, they'll probably take it.
Do we have, if the current interested party and it ends up not being interested, do we have somebody else who maybe, have you talked to anybody who?
Not officially. We have a couple ideas of people that we want to talk to that have indicated some interest, but I don't want to put their name out yet,
No,
so,
no.
yeah.
But maybe it's time, maybe
Right.
it's time, and we can't wait around until somebody says yeah or nay. I mean,
Yeah,
at some point,
right.
time is up. And this is a good project for us, this is a good
Yeah.
project for the community. We have the money, so let's maybe look for option B and C
Yeah.
to see where there's interest out there. I mean, it's my,
Well, yeah, this winter storm gave us a few more days, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of covered the ground again.
Well,
And it's frozen down to 4 feet, so.
Yeah, great concept. We just need to get somebody to play in the sand with us, so.
Playing the sludge, you mean? Well, see.
Or you beat grout in this case, so.
And Dennis is also working on, I should say Dennis and the staff are also working on electric charging, or vehicle charging station as well too. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
Looking at that,
Yeah.
being
How many?
somewhere down by I-94 and 8th Street. We're still working-
One to start with, and,
Probably
Right.
one to start with, so we're still working through the logistics of that.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
sure that we update at some point in time when it gets a little bit more involved.
But yeah, we've talked to the landowners, and they're all in. They're ready to do this and are ready to work with us on, we're talking about putting in a one station initially, and then we'll be set up so if we wanted to add more, we could.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we will. In a couple of years, electric cars are just coming up to greater use. So.
yeah.
And then, just a quick note, we'll be talking about, goal 3.3, at the next meeting. We'll be talking about the vertical expansion or uniting the MPS team. That'll be discussed at the next planning commission meeting, at the MPS.
Yeah, I've got some language ideas on this.
Sure.
I don't like it in its current form.
Okay.
So. And Bill knows I don't like it in its current form.
Sure.
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, I think that one we've got to, in fact, yeah, I'd really like a good conversation among the five of us on 3.3. Because there's more to that than the unification of the team. We've got to talk about what that means in our relationship to City Hall and whatever's going to happen with City Hall and a facility, and, so I think we need to be pretty sensitive to a lot of opinions that are in town on that, so.
We just definitely need to have a plan in place for
Yep.
something, if something needs to happen.
Yeah,
and we have a couple of big projects that may have priority over,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying, right?
We just indicated that we've got some millions of dollars to spend over the next few years, so, yeah. So,
And also doesn't touch on the well project.
right, right,
That's gonna make it bigger.
yeah. So, okay, what does approval mean? If I ask for a motion to approve, what does that mean?
we would approve
It's
it.
in a strike and underline, so if you've got language changes to 3.3,
Yeah,
I would approve it now.
No,
Yeah, then you might
I'd say we
wanna wait.
table it.
they just defer,
Defer.
yeah, because we don't have a motion, so we won't table anything, but let's just defer then.
okay.
Okay. Is that all we need to do then, tonight?
That's like a closed session.
This was, yeah, I got that, but on the plan, anyway.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I thought this was great discussion, really good information, so I appreciate that.
And I like the idea too about maybe presenting some of the bigger projects to council.
Right.
So that, you know, we're all in sync.
Absolutely, so, no, this is good. Okay. Well, then we'll just agree to defer on the strategic plan for next time, and we'll figure out when we do some kind of approval. But I was a little uneasy about approving language that is gonna need to change, so.
Do we need a motion for that, or do we just
No,
defer?
it's still tabled, so.
You actually still have a motion on the table, we haven't even removed it from the table yet.
Okay, perfect.
So,
So,
it's just hanging out there.
just hanging out there?
Cool.
We're good, we defer, okay. At this time, I know I've got it laying here someplace. At this time, the meeting will now close for executive session as permitted by Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3, Subdivision B, to discuss possible litigation that classifies as attorney-client privileged communication. Are we?
No action is
No,
expected.
We don't anticipate any action, so. With this, I think we could close the regular meeting and adjourn. So. Can I have a motion to close the meeting?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are in closed session.